Call the August 9th meeting to order. First item of business is approval of the July 26th meeting minutes. Any additions or changes? Yep. Seeing none, next item is citizen comments. If there's anybody here on non-agenda items. Next item, employee promotions and new hires.
Good evening. Carolyn McCollum-Scantlin, Director of the Hayes Communications Center. I have with me tonight, in case you haven't met her, Rachel Krause. Rachel was born and raised in Hayes. She graduated from Fort Hays State in 2013, December, and went to work for us in, I'm sorry, I was wrong. She graduated in 2010 and went to work for us in 2013 for the City of Hayes in the Dispatch Center. And we have recently promoted her to shift lead, and she's a valuable asset to our department. I think she's going to do an excellent job in this position.
Great.
Good.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do.
Good evening, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So I've got 3 Public Works employees to recognize tonight. And the first one here to my left is Johnny Rook. Johnny's actually been with the city since 2010. He was hired on as a recycling collector for the solid waste division at that time. He's done a great job with solid waste so far and was recently promoted to equipment operator from a maintenance worker 2. Johnny's the primary manager and operator of the city compost site, and is also available and used as a solid waste driver and collector and whatever else they might need on a daily basis. He continues to perform well in his day-to-day operations and his duties, and we're very happy to have him promoted to this position with the City of Hayes.
Good.
Next to him is Ed Weber. Ed is a new hire. He started with us in Public Works on July 23rd as a maintenance worker 1. Mr. Weber actually worked for the city about 25 years ago as a dispatcher for 14 years before moving on to other opportunities. Ed was interested in a maintenance position that opened up and was interviewed and hired for the position. We're also excited to have Ed on board at Public Works in the Service Division and look forward to many years of service with Ed. And last but not least, we have Tanner Wolf. Tanner was actually hired as a part-time stormwater maintenance worker back in May of 2016. He recently graduated from Fort Hays with a geology degree, and shortly after that, a full-time maintenance worker 1 position opened up in July last month. And Tanner was interested in the full-time position and was offered the position, and he gladly accepted. Tanner has been a true asset to Public Works in both his part-time and full-time status. We always joke about his persistence and go-get-em attitude. I always said to give Tanner a machete in a storm drain ditch and look out. We're lucky to have Tanner as a full-time employee, and there's no doubt that he as well will do a great job for the city. So.
Welcome.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. With you tonight is Matt Winholz. You've actually seen him a couple of times up here. Matt started with us in August of 2016 and was promoted to Maintenance Worker 2 in April of 2017, and has continued to show his excellent skills and abilities, and has recently been promoted to a park technician. Matt is capable of doing irrigation systems, pumps at the pools, very good equipment operator, has been working at the cemetery, helping with graves. There's really nothing Matt can't do, so we're very pleased to have Matt. He has a wealth of experience with the Ellis County prior to working for the City of Hayes and also the City of Ellis. So we are very, very pleased to have Matt on board.
Good.
Good.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good evening, Don Scheibler, Chief of Police for the Hayes Police Department. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce our newest police officer, Ethan Henderson. Ethan comes to us from Great Bend, Kansas, and we're graduating Great Bend High School. Upon completion of high school, He joined the Barton County Reserve Department, joined his father, who also joined us today, who's lieutenant down there for the Barton County Sheriff's Department Reserve Program. Ethan then went to Barton County. We played a little basketball and eventually got his degree in criminal justice. He spent time working for Western Ag for his father, but he also went to work for a Great Bend Police Department, where he became a certified law enforcement officer. He's come on board with us and he's hit the ground running. We're very excited to have him on board. He's already a certified law enforcement officer, doesn't have to go to the academy, so we're getting him up to speed. I just saw his first monthly eval today, and they said he's doing outstanding, so we're very, very happy to have him. So,
Good.
thank you.
Welcome.
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 Glad
Dave.
you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Should be it.
Okay. Next item is the consent agenda. See everything there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Husel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is the Iki Park restroom facility.
No, it's Iki. Is this something from last week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Started out with Icky Park.
Oh, okay, that's hilarious.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks again. Was recently approached by the Sunrise Rotary Club. They've been working for a couple of years trying to obtain funds to install a restroom facility at Iki Park. This shows an aerial photo of Iki Park. So far, let me back up a little bit. In 2010, the Sunrise Rotary Club adopted Iki Park in an effort to make improvements to the park, to make it a nice park. So some of the things that happened in 2011 was there were 30 trees planted. The sign at the corner, southeast corner of the park, was redone and re-landscaped. A new drinking fountain was put in. In 2015, I believe it was, or 14, the new shelter house was put in with sidewalks leading up to it. It's got electricity in there. Really, the only thing the park is missing is a restroom and to use playground upgrade. They basically requested that we move forward with the restroom facility at this time. This is what it would look like. This is the restroom facility that's put in at Kiwanis Park. These are on state bids. They're $42,100 on state bids. So far that we have been very pleased with these restrooms. They are half the price of what we used to pay for them. And it's a very quick installation. Very little time involved in installing them, and they're very user-friendly. This is a breakdown of the costs. Again, I mentioned the $42,100 restroom, which is state bids. The low bids for the electrical and plumbing from local vendors was $9,680. $600 for base rock, soil proctor, and compaction testing. $800 for concrete. Those would be done in-house by city staff. And I might back up and show you. That'd be where the red line is. We basically connect from the shelter over to the restroom and back to the sidewalk on the street, where a lot of folks would park. We did throw in a 10% contingency for this project. I do not anticipate needing to use any of that contingency, but it's nice to have it there just in case we run into something. The total is $58,500 to do the restroom. Last week we talked about a $10,000 donation from the Rotary Club. There was some miscommunication. That is actually a $20,000 donation from the Rotary Club. It's $10,000 in Dane G. Hansen funds and $10,000 in matching funds from the Rotary Club, Sunrise Rotary Club. And then the rest, the remaining $38,500 would be paid for by the city. Again, that's what the restroom would look like. The action requested is what we've been talking about tonight. Basically use the $20,000 from the Sunrise Rotary Club and $38,500 from the city special parks to pay for it. I would mention that the money is available in special parks, even though this particular item was actually budgeted in 2020. There is money available because we had $50,000 budgeted for slides at the aquatic park. That after numerous discussions, we have decided that what we have is what we need to have and not go back to the original. The original was very problematic and time consuming, and the slides were shut down a lot. And what we did to fix that, even though we're spending about $1,000 or $1,200 a year in gel coat work, it's well worth the savings that we're saving in labor and folks not being able to use a slide in the middle of the summer. So we think we're better off staying right where we are.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve a new restroom facility for Eki Park, $20,000 donation from the Sunrise Rotary Club, $30,500 from the 2018 Special Park and Recreation budget.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stoller, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any discussion, questions?
What kind of a timeline do you have on this, Jeff?
We would like to see it completed by October 31st. The biggest thing that would get in our way is if the restroom can't get here in the normal time frame.
Okay.
If that is extended by a couple of weeks, it could go into the first part of November.
Very good, very good.
It was nice to have a mistake made in the direction it was made.
Yes.
From last week, it was
It was.
nice to get that email. Thank
Yeah.
Rotary very, very much.
Yes.
Yes.
Will there be any recognition of both the club and the foundation for providing, there'll be a plaque on site?
I think it's something we should definitely look at doing.
I
Yes.
think that'd be wise.
Yep, I definitely think we could do that.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank the Sunrise Rotary Club and, the work we've done, you guys have done in the last year to many of our parks. I hear many people compliment, the sidewalks and stuff, and I think this is just another great thing you guys are doing, so thank
We
you
wouldn't
guys.
have the park like it is
Right.
without Sunrise Road.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you guys very much.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Chiefs.
Nice doing business with you folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you.
item.
Pleasure.
Next
Evening.
item is nuisance abatement at 303 West 16th.
Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So the next two items on the agenda are rolled into one presentation since they're both pertaining to the same property. A little bit of background, then I'll get into some images of the property and what we're talking about tonight. I do want to mention that for this nuisance abatement and the vehicle as well, all required notifications required by the statute city ordinance have been sent to both the property owner and the tenant of the property. And until recently, I'll talk about that a little bit more, there's been no attempt by the owner or the tenant to abate the nuisance or the vehicle conditions. There have been many past issues on this property. Since 2012, we've had at least 10 cases on this particular property. So most of the pictures that'll be on the right of the screen are from today. I do want to mention I did make contact with the tenant again today, and there has been significant progress since we met last week, Thursday. The vehicle is still there. According to the tenant, they're working with an attorney. They're hoping to have the vehicle gone by Monday after some title work because of the deceased member of the family created some issues. They did get in, do took care of the weeds and tall grass on the property within the last week. These are older pictures. This is the internal part of the property. Much of that is gone as well. Here, this is from the street side of the property. Again, the one on the right, I'd say it's about the same image. You can see everything that's been cleaned up there, and the grass is taken care of. This is from the west side of the property, again, street side. You can see everything from the garage, in front of the garage. The large items have been removed since last week. Again, images, these are from the alley, the rear yard. You couldn't hardly see into the backyard before because of the weeds and the junk. There is still some trash and junk remaining on the property. A couple of the images last week compared to today. And one more image, you can see the work they've done on the front of the property.
Wow.
Again, a significant improvement. There has been a church group that came in as an assistant tenant in the cleanup. And as I mentioned, I spoke with her today. She mentioned that they hope to have the rest of the cleanup completed this weekend. I did let her know that this item was coming before the commission tonight, and if they choose to take action, the resolution does allow for the city to come in and complete the cleanup 10 days after the resolution is passed. She felt that it would not even be necessary to have the full 10 days, but obviously they're given that full 10 days before we can take any action. He does hope to finish the property. So your options tonight would be to approve the resolutions, one for the general nuisance and one for the vehicle. That would allow the city to abate the conditions in the property. And again, that would occur not before August 20th. Or you cannot approve the resolutions, provide some other options. If you choose to move them forward, these would be the actions required. There would be 2 motions required, one for each resolution if you decide to move.
Mr. Chairman, I'll approve resolution number 2018-008 to abate the nuisance items located on the property at 303 West 16th Street 10 days after the approval date.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any questions or comments?
I just would like to applaud the church group. I was contacted, you were here, by a neighbor, and she had contacted the church group, and they said they were going to come out and help, and that's very nice that they stepped up, and then from what I can see, hopefully it'll be done. The city won't have to do anything.
So there's a tenant, but there's an owner?
There's an owner. The registered owner is deceased and has been for at least the past year. I believe the deceased was the mother of the tenant.
Yeah.
The only reason that I'll be voting to approve this is because of the historical problems we've had. You know, if this would be the first time and they did the cleanup they did, it'd be different. But I think just to protect everything as we go, if they get it done, they get it done. That's great.
Yeah, we don't like to do this to anybody's property, but sometimes unless we pass this resolution, sometimes feet start dragging and things don't get done for one reason or the other. So we're just protecting the city's interest in passing this.
But they
Not
really
try-
didn't.
Not trying to be, punishing anybody.
And even if passed, if they take care of it on their own, we
It's
drop
over.
it and nothing.
Yeah. And they've got 10 days, and so, yeah.
Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Have a
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve resolution number 2018-009 to abate the vehicle located on the property at 303 West 16th Street 10 days after the approval date.
A second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Melick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
Next item is a 43rd and 45th Street reconstruction award of bid.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown, Project Manager for the City of Hayes. And this map shows the project location for the reconstruction of 43rd Street and 45th Street. 43rd Street being immediately to the south of Walmart and 45th being north. West 43rd Street and West 45th Street were constructed in conjunction with the Walmart store in the year of 2000. For various reasons, the pavement has prematurely failed, and there have been numerous patching jobs over the last 18 years. The most logical course of action at this point is to remove the existing pavement, stabilize the road base, and place new concrete pavement. The intent of the project is to reconstruct the pavement the entire length of both streets to Vine Street west to the end of the existing pavement, which is about 1,180 feet on each of those. The road base would be repaired, existing curb and gutter and driveway entrances would remain. Sidewalk and ADA ramps would be constructed along the north side of 43rd Street, the entire length of the project, and the existing storm sewer system and other utilities are in good shape and would remain. Bids were opened on July 10th from 4 bidders. All the bids were reviewed by city staff and Driggs Design Group, the city's engineer for this project. The low bid from Votes Parga of Newton, Kansas, in the amount of $476,324.12 has been determined to be the valid low bidder and below the engineer's estimate. Votes Parga has done work in the city of Ellis, and the Ellis Public Works Director there provided favorable recommendation. We also validated Votes Parga's good reputation with the city of Newton, Kansas. This reconstruction of 43rd and 45th Street was listed in the CIP of the 2018 budget at a combined cost of $1.2 million for both projects to be funded out of the Commission Capital Reserve in 2019. However, due to availability of funds, the City Commission authorized accelerating both of those projects. And we began a higher design back in February and just got it out to bid. The sidewalk along the north side of 43rd Street could be funded out of CVB since the sidewalk would serve the proposed convention center in that area. The cost of the sidewalk improvements is $27,212.40. The balance remaining would be funded out of Commission capital reserves, $902,739.72. The current schedule calls for the construction of 45th Street to begin shortly after the award of bid, if it's approved tonight, and be completed before Thanksgiving. 43rd Street reconstruction would begin after the holiday season, after the first of the year, as winter weather might allow, and is called to be completed by July 1st. Inspection of the project would be completed in-house by city staff. So your options are to accept the low bid from Votes Parga or to direct staff to another option.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the city manager to enter a contract with Votes Parga Construction LLC in the amount of $876,324.12 for the reconstruction of 43rd and 45th Streets west of Vine Street to be funded $27,212.40 from the CVB contingency, with the balance coming from the Commission capital reserves.
Motion by Commissioner Melick, seconded by Commissioner Musil. Comments or discussion?
John, the reason the project was started was because of 43rd Street. So how does this tie in with the hotel and all the development, and what's their share? How does this work out?
Right. This reconstruction is separate from the extension of 43rd Street to serve the Hilton Garden Inn and Convention Center to the west of Walmart. And they have the same engineer as we do. Driggs Design Group is working for the developer to do the extension of the road and utilities for the Hilton Garden Inn development. So that coordination is very hand in glove due to that. And their construction schedule meshes right in with our construction schedule, so that we wouldn't be imposing any hardship on their construction, and ours would be done well before the Hilton Garden Inn Convention Center opens for business.
I thought there was some coordination beyond engineering, that there's other work that has to be done leading to their property, and you're saying that's not the case. This is going to be one and done, and then we just walk away, right?
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is, we had actually talked with the developer, knowing that there was the rebuilding of 43rd and the extension of 43rd, and asked them if they were, and knowing that we're using the same engineers, asked them if they were interested in bidding the project out and then paying their share of
And
the
they said no.
extension. Well, they said yes, but they wanted to retain the right to then go get another option. And we said, we can't do business like that. If you want to go get another option, you need to do that. If we bid it, we've got to take the low bid.
Okay.
So that's
Thank
the
you for
reason why it's
clarifying.
not.
That's all I wanted to know. There's no mention of it.
I have the same resentment of having to vote yes on this as I did last week, so.
Why is that?
Because it started breaking down so early in the streets, and I know we used warranty, they brought that up last week, but this street should have lasted, and with code the way it is now, they will last longer than this one has, but it was done because, we're having to do this because the base was put in improperly.
Oh, yes.
John, would you like to explain about the work on 43rd, access to businesses and...
Sure. Well, just a little bit before that, 45th Street would be closed down completely and all done in one phase. So they can shut down the whole thing, do it all at once, and open that one back up relatively quickly. Because of the other businesses on 43rd Street and all the access that's required, that 43rd Street will have to be reconstructed in several phases. But we would always provide access to every business along 43rd Street. And in fact, there will be traffic in and out of 43rd Street to access those businesses. However, access from the once 45th Street is done, and we're working on 43rd Street, you can get into the Walmart parking lot from 43rd Street, but you'll have to leave to the north.
45th.
Excellent.
That'll reduce the congestion in the construction zone on 43rd Street and make it easier for people to access the businesses on the, let's just say on the south side of 43rd Street.
And you're doing this mainly because generally after the first of the year, businesses aren't as busy as they are before the holidays.
Exactly. We didn't want to have 43rd Street torn up during the holiday season. And we also didn't want to run the risk of starting the project, having winter set in and not be done. So we won't start 43rd Street until after the first of the year if the winter weather is favorable for construction.
Thank
And we
you.
will have some access, although limited, on 41st Street.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Not a one-way road.
Right.
It is difficult to access if you're going northbound on Vine, but.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I thought of last time I was reading this is the time frame, like in March, because it's a busy time in the community of Hayes with the high school activities and stuff. I mean, have you thought about how, because you said after the first of the year, I mean, maybe starting mid-March, 1st of March? And just because we have a lot of eateries out there that are very popular. you know,
Right, but if we wait till
it-
March, then
it's into another,
we're getting longer. We will start, our plan is to start after the first of the year as winter weather allows.
Yeah, there's really not a great time out there because
Yeah.
that transitions into the summer
Right.
season and it's just
Yeah.
busy all summer up there then.
I understand.
Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Next item is update to the Uniform Public Offense Code and the Standard Traffic Ordinance.
Good evening, Don Scheibler, Chief of Police for the Hayes Police Department. I have a couple of housekeeping issues for tonight. You're being asked to consider adopting by ordinance the updated version of the 2018 Uniform Public Offense Code, also known as the UPOC, and the updated 2018 Standard Traffic Ordinance for Kansas Cities for use within the city of Hayes. The league publishes revised versions of these books, and the changes are presented to the commission annually. These books are designed to provide comprehensive laws for Kansas communities, and for the most part, they parallel state and traffic criminal codes. The overwhelming majority of both books remain the same from year to year, with only a few changes being made. Handout has been prepared noting the additions or changes that were made in 2018. That information is included with your work session material. Some of the changes to the UPOC, including criminal littering, as Commissioner Musel pointed out last week, this is not a new law, but they added it to the UPOC and they increased the fines substantially. They set the fines substantially. For the first conviction, it's between $250 and $1,000. A second conviction is $1,000 to $2,000. And the third and higher conviction is $2,000 to $4,000 conviction. Also, with these requirements, if you get convicted of criminal littering, the court shall order you to pick up trash for a period of time in a location within inside the city limit to Hayes.
How do you,
I'm sorry?
I think legislature is fine. How do you prove this?
What's that?
Littering.
Different ways to prove littering. Sometimes we actually see them do it. Sometimes they throw a trash bag out and,
It has their name in it.
yes. So,
But proving that they're the ones that did it is another matter.
that's correct. So,
Wow, okay.
this section does not cover littering on the road, though. They added something to the STO that prohibits littering from a vehicle. It cites the driver for littering if the person throws it out the vehicle and it stays on the road. It's kind of a unique feature of this statute or the ordinance is that if it throws out of the car, and we can't tell who threw it out of the car, the driver gets the ticket.
I have a question. You know, last summer there was a lot of communities, there was fires from people throwing cigarettes out. If you see that, is that littering?
Yes. By definition of what this says, it's pretty broad.
That's interesting.
Making unlawful requests for emergency service. This used to be making a false alarm, reporting a false alarm. This comes from the recent incident and swatting incident in Wichita. Basically, it makes it a crime to report something falsely that requires that generates a response from emergency services, whether it be police department, EMS, or fire. Some STO updates, including passing of a stationary waste collection vehicle. Commissioner Malik asked last week whether or not our vehicles were in compliance. I met with the Public Works Director. We do have a few that need to have a light added to them. We're going to be able to do that with in-house help and bring those into compliance pretty quick.
Great.
This statute, this section 40.1 is designed to make people drive a little safer around those people picking up the trash. We have had 3 trash trucks hit by vehicles, so this is a good thing. So, the second one is overtaking, passing a school bus, as we talked about last week. This continues to be a challenge for us. This is not a new law, but it did increase the fine. The initial fine is still $375. The second fine is $750 for the second offense, and the third offense is $1,000. And those, you can accrue those over a 5-year period. So,
Chief, how could someone hit a trash truck? They didn't see it? They tried to pass it?
city manager always tells me to be prepared for all questions. I'm not sure I'm prepared for that one.
It's as big as a house.
It has to be in the dark. That's in the winter when it's darker, when they start, maybe that.
I recall one incident because there was an insurance claim. We filed against the vehicle owner insurance. And they had pulled into the alley and went right into the back end of the trash truck that was in the alley. They just drove in, didn't see it, I guess.
My experience is inattentive driving tends to be the biggest cause of accidents.
So, Don, going back to when I asked you this last week with the school buses, this happens quite often. They have a stop sign out and people go around the bus. That just blows
It's just
my mind.
unbelievable,
Me too.
unbelievable.
I guess growing up in a small town, we've seen that happen all the time where you just stop, waited.
And it's obvious that this is a problem across the state, because, I mean, they increased the fine statewide, so
It's shameful.
it's a challenge. School's starting up again, we'll start
Yeah.
education public again,
Yeah.
but we're gonna be out there enforcing it too.
I appreciate the drivers making the effort to get tags and call it in, the bus drivers. I think that'll help a lot, and I hope you encourage all of them to do the same thing.
We
It's
appreciate our
just
partnership with the
unbelievable.
school district.
Good.
Recommendation, city staff recommends the commission approve the ordinances adopting the 2018 revised Uniform Public Offense Code and the standard traffic ordinances for Kansas City.
These two separate.
Yes, they're two different agendas.
I'll make a motion we approve the city ordinance number 3955, adopting the 2018 version of the Uniform Public Offense Code for use within the city of Hayes.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Melick, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any additional questions or comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passes 5-0.
I'll make a motion we approve city ordinance number 3956, adopting the 2018 version of the standard traffic ordinance for use within the city of Hayes.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Melick. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. Thank you, Chief.
Very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Next item, at the 2019 budget hearing, are we going to have a short presentation, or are we going to open the hearing right away? You're up, so I'm assuming there's a...
I would say if you want to open the hearing,
And then we'll
Jake
have
could
a...
do the presentation.
Great.
Take questions.
So with that, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on the 2019 budget. Mr. Woods?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Jacob Wood, Assistant City Manager. I will be providing a little overview of the budget. You guys have been going through it in detail over the last couple of months, so I won't go into too great a detail. I'll ask you if you turn to your folder to page 1. I'm just joking. I'm not going to do that.
I fell for it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Cover the goals and highlights of the budget. First of all, it's a balanced budget. There's no mill levy increase. There's implementation of a new pay plan that's part of this budget. There's no additional employees for the city of Hayes. We'll continue in the process of paying cash for large projects as we've done in the past. And then our reserve funds are maintained and actually increasing in some cases across the board.
So by balanced budget, you mean not spending more than we take in?
That's exactly right.
Charlie?
Awesome.
This is the totals
Just
by
thought I'd go ahead and
fund.
clarify that for everybody.
The general fund is at about $12.5 million. Our levy funds are at $9 million. The enterprise funds are at $12 million, almost $13 million. And then we have some miscellaneous funds that are at almost $5 million. The total for all funds for the City of Hayes budget for 2019 is $39.5 million. Go into a little bit of detail on the general fund. Our projected revenue is at $12.5 million. We are expecting a sales tax decrease of about 1%, but our revenue should remain about flat. We still have other kinds of revenues that are coming in that are aside from sales tax, so we do think our sales tax, or our total revenue, will remain pretty flat for the next year. The expenditures do increase by about $400,000. And most of that is due to the implementation of the new pay plan. Actually, about half of it is due to the new pay plan. The rest is just various line items throughout the budget. We'll continue to transfer money to the Special Highway Fund to fund our street maintenance program. We've been transferring $500,000 for that purpose for the last several years. And then we'll have a transfer to the Commission Capital Reserve of about $400,000. Now, typically, if we collect more revenue and spend less money, we have a little bit more money there. We do kind of build that transfer up. So if we have the ability to transfer more money to the Commission Capital Reserve, we certainly will do that. That's something that we'll talk about later on in the year. Onto the levy funds. The library fund is sitting at 6.7 mils. Airport is at 1 mil. The employee benefits is at 12.1 mils. Public safety is at 2 mils, and then bond and interest is 3.2. The total for all of our levy funds is 9.1 million. The assessed valuation is expected to decrease by 0.5%. Value of 1 mil for 2019 is expected to be at $234,000. That's down about $10,000 from the previous year. But we will remain stable at 25 mils. We've been at or below 25 mils for 12 out of the last 13 years. We're still the 6th lowest in the state, or lowest in Kansas, and we are the lowest outside of Johnson County, so we will continue with that trend. Onto our enterprise funds and the water production and distribution. We project about 3.7 million in revenue there. Expenditures have come down about $400,000, and we expect a transfer of $639,000 to the capital improvement. The decrease in expenditures is just kind of getting things in line with more historical values. One of the big line items there was a reduction in the amount of chemicals that we plan to purchase. Water reclamation and reuse, we have a 4.7 million projected revenue there. Expenditures are expected to increase in this fund kind of significantly by $900,000, and most of that is due to the payments for the wastewater treatment plant that are coming online. And we still expect to transfer $150,000 to capital improvement. For water conservation, we're not really changing a whole lot with our conservation programs. $48,000 for education, $50,000 for toilet rebates, $50,000 for turf rebates, and then $22,000 for washing machine rebates. In solid waste, we project revenue of $1.4 million. The expenditures have increased there just a little bit. This budget does include a rate increase of $2. The last rate increase that we had was in 2006, and we also expect to transfer $195,000. The budget numbers include that $2 increase, but we will have that agenda item to you later in the year so we can discuss where that actually needs to be. But for the purposes of budgeting, $2 is where we set it. Miscellaneous funds, special highway, we have 1.1 million for street maintenance program. In special parks, we plan to resurface the tennis court, installation of restroom at Hickok Park. We have some play equipment at Rolling Hills, and then we'll be doing various sidewalk installation at parks throughout the community. CVB, we do have a 2% increase in transient guest tax that was passed a couple of months ago that we have included in here. $75,000 transfer to special parks. That's something we started 2 years ago. We'll continue to try and use some of that money for special parks. And then we have the $400,000 that would be transferred to debt service to fund Vine Street improvements. And stormwater, we don't really have any large projects for 2018. $75,000 is a program there for structure replacement. In the capital improvement plan for streets, the big thing we have in streets is improvements on Elm, Ash, and 4th Street. That will be over by Lewis Field Stadium. And then we have the extension of 41st Street to Vineyard Park. Water production and reclamation, we just have some various water lines and sewer line replacement, nothing too big there. You'll see there's not a whole lot of really big projects in 2019, but we got a lot of big projects going on right now, so it's not like we're not working. It's just those projects are carrying over into future years. Fleet replacement schedule, this isn't too significant. There's not near as many vehicles, I think, this year as we've had in the last couple of years. But this is what fleet looks like. And just a summary, once again, this is a balanced budget. There's no mill levy increase. New pay plan is coming online. We'll continue paying cash for projects. No new employees, and the continued focus for city staff and city commission, as it has been for the last several years, is that we pass a sustainable budget. So this is a sustainable budget, and from that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to pass them off to Kim, because he's the one.
Is there anyone in the audience, any public that wanted to make any comments? This would be the time to do that.
Mr. Chairman, seeing none, I move we close the public hearing for the 2019 budget.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Musil to close the public hearing on the 2019 budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Before you get too much farther, I just want to say this is a lot of culmination of work that happens for this project and this process. We start early in the year, and it's something that goes on and on. So just want to say thank you to all the people that are involved. I don't have next to this.
Wow.
Probably getting sued.
Good luck in Fredonia.
And with that, I will be, if you guys have heard the word about Space Force, I'm looking forward to signing up as soon as it's...
Yeah, you're in the Army Reserve.
Yeah,
2020.
Space Force Reserve.
Some say you're already there, Jacob. Some say you're already there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the 2019 budget for the city of Hayes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Musil.
No.
Malik?
Malik.
Okay, Malik. We'll go with Malik. Appreciate the staff, and once again, projecting decreased revenues. We have a decrease in the mill levy, but the budget is sustainable, and we're improving an employment pay plan for our employees is going to take care of them into the future. All continue to pay cash for all of our projects, not all of our projects, but majority of our projects moving forward. So due diligence of our staff and those who have come before us. So.
Like I've said in the past, I'd like to thank Toby. When I got on City Commission in 2013, these two guys were on it, and they had a great plan ahead. I think that was one of our best years ever on sales tax, or close. And you guys had a plan in place to, still sustainable. And, I couldn't come on here and blame anybody for what you did, but, tell you thank you for what you've done, but we've continued that. We've had changes. A lot of that comes with city staff, and I appreciate what you guys have done. Like you were saying, Mayor, we pay cash. We've done a lot of large projects since I've been on the commission. And, when I get off here, I hope that it continues to be this way. I think we have a good plan in place. We have a pay plan that I think is going to be great to keep employees, which anybody that has ever employed employees knows that costs money when you have turnover. But Toby, Kim, I appreciate Mr. Wood, what you guys do, and I just hope we can continue this as a commission, because I think we got something great going on here, and we got a lot of good things going on in the future.
I'd just reiterate what Commissioner Musil said. I wanted to give a little extra to the employee committee and to Aaron Giebler. Rebuilding an employee pay plan is a huge deal, and I know how many hours they put into it and how much work. I really spend a lot of time reviewing it since she shared it with us at the retreat earlier this year. They've done an outstanding job, and it's a wonderful pay plan, in my opinion. Pay plan.
Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is an update on the R9 change applications.
Toby Doherty, City Manager. Last week, I was asked to speak at the Kansas Water Congress on the R9 change application. And so Lane Letourneau with the Division of Water Resources, myself, spoke to the group. And I wanted to take the opportunity to pull a couple slides I used at that conference and incorporate into my R9 update this week. So a lot of people don't understand why Hayes is the only city that really talks about water all the time. And So this is a visual showing the 34 counties in Kansas with a population of more than 15,000. This shows annual precipitation across the state. So we get about 22 inches of rain in Hayes. By the time you get to Salina, they get over 30 inches of rain. By the time you get to southeast Kansas, you get almost 46 inches of rain annually. 30 inches of rain is where you get very reliable stream flow. The creeks, the rivers, they run all the time. When you get west, it's very intermittent and just depending on rainfall and usually temporary when it happens. This is a map showing the major aquifers in Kansas. So you have the Ogallala, the Great Bend Prairie, and the Equus beds. They're all part of the High Plains Aquifer. But the Ogallala is declining. The Great Bend Prairie is sort of maintaining. The Equus beds is actually recharging, and if it drops down, it comes right back up. So this kind of ties it all together. You see the 34 counties in Kansas with a population of more than 15,000 transposed with the aquifers and rainfall. So there's only one county in Kansas over 15,000 that doesn't get adequate rainfall, but doesn't sit on top of an aquifer that's able to provide water, and that's us. So there's a reason why we're at the forefront of doing what we're doing. And I just think this stuff is helpful to just keep it in perspective. So we are in the process of developing the R9 Ranch with the City of Russell as a long-term water source. The R9 development's a two-part process. There's a change application process, and then there's the water transfer process. We're nearing completion of the change application process. The chief engineer has issued a master order. He has sought public comment on the master order. He hopes to have the master order finalized early in September. The last entity we're waiting on comment from is GMD5. They have a regulatory right to provide comment on the change order. I know they have a board meeting tonight. And the chief engineer has given them until August 31st to provide comment if they are going to provide comment. So once we complete the change application process and that change application is deemed approved, that starts the clock for the transfer process. And summarizing the Water Transfer Act, the cities have to provide, or to be able to prove, to demonstrate four main components. One, we have to demonstrate that by transferring the water from Edwards County to Hayes, that we aren't impairing any existing water rights. We're not impairing existing water rights. In fact, we're making the aquifer better off down there. This is a visual that we prepared almost a year and a half ago now that shows that within the first 50 years of converting it to municipal use, the aquifer is going to benefit 225,000 acre feet. If we were to use all the availability we have starting at day one, we wouldn't impair any existing water rights. But by ramping it up for municipal use, we're actually making the aquifer better off. The cities have to demonstrate that we've invested in conservation measures, and the statutes are pretty clear on this. You don't just adopt a conservation plan in the summer, it gets dry, and then go transfer water. You have to demonstrate that this is a long-term effort, conservation. As you can see, we're by far the lowest gallons per capita day usage in the state of Kansas. As you get east, the Lawrences, the Emporias, you have the benefit of rainfall, and even if you're growing fescue, more rain equals less water usage. Urban areas use less water than rural areas typically. But you can see what happens when you get out west, Garden City and Colby, they use a lot of water, but they also have a lot of water underneath them. The cities have to demonstrate that they have evaluated all the alternative sources. So this is just a visual that shows you all of the things that the cities of Hayes and Russell have looked at and studied, quite frankly, most of them in depth, for alternative sources of water. And after we've looked at all these sources, we determined that the R9 is the most viable long-term option. But we're able to meet the intent of the statutes by demonstrating that we've spent 50 years looking for alternative sources of water. And most importantly, the cities have to demonstrate that the benefit to the state of Kansas by approving the transfer outweighs the benefit to the state of Kansas by not approving the transfer. And we make it an economic argument. The Hayes and Russell region represent a $2 billion economy. That economy is growing. That economy depends on an adequate supply of water. And if the state of Kansas wants this economy to continue to grow, then they need to approve this transfer, and then they keep getting property tax or sales tax, they keep getting income tax, they keep getting money from the economy. And we think it boils down to a very simple argument. So the next step, as I mentioned, we're waiting for the chief engineer to get input from GMD5. Chief engineer approves a master order, and then the transfer panel requests a hearing officer. The transfer panel is comprised of 3 people, the secretary of KDHE or the director of environment, the head of the Kansas Water Office, and the chief engineer of DWR. They convene, they request from the Office of Administration a hearing officer be appointed to administer the hearings throughout the process, and then there's the statutory process is defined as they move forward. There was a public meeting in Greensburg as part of the change order process, and I know some of you were able to attend. And the public meeting was attended by maybe 100 people, maybe 50 that didn't actually have to be there, that weren't associated with the project. And it was a pretty benign meeting. Some people were critical of what we were doing, but there was some questions answered. During the public comment, there was a report presented by a group called WaterPack. WaterPack is a 501c3. It's a water advocacy group, near as I can tell. It's not associated with any state organization. It's not sanctioned by the statutes or the regulations. It's just a 501c3 advocacy group that advocates for water issues. They had hired an engineer named Andy Keller to examine the cities of Hayes and Russell's modeling efforts and look at the DWR's consumptive use calculation. The Keller presentation pointed to 2 things they thought were wrong with the chief engineer's master order. 1, they didn't like the consumptive use calculations, and 2, they pointed out that water levels were declining in the area, even though the cities of Hayes have ramped back production on the ranch. So we have evaluated the Keller report. Essentially, with regard to consumptive use, Keller is asking DWR to set aside the way they do consumptive use. What they're saying is, when you utilize your formula for consumptive use, which we know you use for everybody and you've utilized for a long time, then we actually get a little more consumptive use number than you came up with. But we would like you to use our consumptive use calculations. And if you use our consumptive use formula, you get a lot less. Well, that's great, but we are asking DWR to stick with their consumptive use formula. So we think that's pretty easy to refute. On the water level trend analysis, they try to point out that even though we've scaled back production on the ranch, the water levels are declining. They picked a very select group of observation wells in the area, and some of them were several miles from the ranch. They ignored wells closer to the ranch, they ignored wells on the ranch, and they ignored all our internal observation wells, all of which is data we would have shared if they would have asked, that show that water level is declining or increasing, especially in areas where we haven't been farming. The areas where we haven't been farming, we've seen aquifer rise and we've seen water quality increasing. So we think that part of the report's also been discredited. So just to remind everybody what's not happening with this project, we are not developing new water rights. We're not taking somebody else's water rights. These are water rights the cities of Hayes and Russell have owned since 1995. DWR is treating us like water rights owners. We're not impairing existing water rights. That's part of what the chief engineer has to determine during the change application process when figuring consumptive use, that you're not impairing anybody. We are not depleting the aquifer, and we are not being treated like everybody else. You guys know the sustainable yield limitation that the chief engineer imposed on us as part of this process. We agreed to it. To limit our use of sustainable yield. That's not something we feel that the state has the right to do. We agreed to it because we're going to use it sustainably anyway. But that's not something to make anybody else do with regard to change applications and consumptive use calculations in their water rights. So we feel like we're going above and beyond the process. So I'm hoping we're going to move very quickly to the transfer process, and I hope my next update is that the transfer panels ask for a hearing officer to be appointed and we get the first public hearing date set. And I would stand for any questions.
And you think that'll be in October, hopefully?
Hopefully.
It's good news. Great info.
And your presentation at the Water Congress this last week was well received from what I understand. Would you care to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, it was very well received. I gave an overview of the project and used a lot of these same slides. The attendees had good questions. DWR spoke after me and talked mostly about procedure and process, but They really illustrated the fact that they're treating Hayes and Russell as property rights owner, which we are under the law. And Kansas uses the doctrine of prior appropriation, and it's prescribed how water rights owners are treated. And so I think there's some people that would like us to be treated specially, but DWR reminded the group that when they started looking at this project and what we were doing, internally they talked about, what if this was the city of Kinsley developing new water rights across the river? How would they treat them? They would treat them like property rights owner. And so why would we want to treat Hayes and Russell any way differently? I would argue that the sustainable yield limitation was an imposition that doesn't treat us like everybody else, but they also know the magnitude of what they're doing. They understand this is going to be the first utilization of the Water Transfer Act in its current form. And so I understand why the chief engineer wanted to do it, even though I don't think he has the legal right to do it. But it was all received. We had very good comments. People were happy with the fact that we have invested in conservation measures for so many years. We're not seeking alternative sources to perpetuate a bad practice. We're seeking long-term sources to provide a long-term benefit so we can continue to use our water wisely and have a long-term source of water. The comments were very positive.
It's also, excellent presentation. It's also important to point out that this is a regional solution, that Russell and Hayes won't be the only consumers of this water. And we have letters of support from other communities that would very much like to tie in once the infrastructure is in place. So it's important to remember that we're working together as a group to make things better in western Kansas. That's it.
And as I understand it, there were those that were at least happy we're doing it, if not excited, that have plans of their own in the future that would like to see us get this done, as other people are going to have water issues as time goes along.
Yes, there are other people that either are experiencing water issues or see it on the horizon that understand that a transfer is probably going to be in their best interest.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toby.
Appreciate it, Toby. Before we go on to comments and inquiries, I did want to just take a moment and introduce our new library director, Brandon Hines. You don't have to come to the podium if you don't want to, but for the commission, if you don't know who he is, that's
He works at
who's.
the library, I remember him well.
Yeah, so he's been, we just had a library meeting yesterday. He's off running and implementing a new PTO system, looking at pay scales, and he's doing a lot of great things. So
Welcome, Brandon.
thanks for coming.
Can I tell you my funny story?
Sure. Oh, yeah, you're fine.
Later, I don't think anyone at home will understand.
Nobody at home will understand. I'll talk to you before we leave.
Okay, Commissioner Melick.
I think the budget that's presented and passed is a great budget, but I'd also like to point out that the city's finances is really relying on 18 mil of that, and that 6.7 mil goes to the library and the library employees fund, so that when somebody says the city is running on 25 mils, that is correct, but technically the city funds only received from the 18 mil.
That's right.
That's true.
Good point.
Pass through.
We have a lot of great nonprofit service organizations in the community, but I just wanted to make one comment and congratulate Big Brothers Big Sisters for the event they had last evening, their duck derby, if you will. Had a great crowd. People were really excited, and I think it was a great fundraiser for a great organization.
Just want to tell everybody, be careful next week school starts, and as we talked earlier about people paying attention when there's buses out. Mom and dads are very excited. Kids are excited to go to school, I think. And, put your phone down and be careful when they go to school.
Okay. I won't be able to attend the work session next week, and it's very unfortunate because we have a group coming in for the accessible park proposal. So unfortunately, I won't be able.
Well, we're
so,
going to have a reorganization meeting afterwards, so don't worry about coming in.
Go for it. With that, may God bless the city of Hayes. Meeting adjourned.
I was on.